Once your work is big enough to divide for the sleeves, now we are going to divide our work into half. So putting the connection from the back and middle, we are going to divide it like this. First, divide it into half. So for example, I have 80 stitches around, so it's going to be 40 for the back and 40 stitches for the front. Then the back, I'm going to divide again into two, 20 stitches and 20 stitches. We are going to work the back in two panels, 1 and 2, connecting them as we go along. Like this, we keep this nice connection line all the way down. It just stays in middle of the back. And then the front, we are going to crochet the whole thing straight. So now we are going to begin by making 20 stitches for the first side of the back. I had done my slip stitch. So now I'm going to turn my work without chaining one. And beginning from the next stitch over, this is going to be my first stitch of 20 stitches. So 1, 2. Remember that if you are making it into a different size, your stitch count is going to be different. Once I've reached half of the back stitches, for me it was 20 stitches. Now I'm going to stop here, chain 1 and turn my work. And now this chain 1 is going to be considered the first stitch. So beginning with the next one, I'm going to make single crochets into each stitch until the end of this row. And 20. At the end of this row, again, I'm going to chain 1 and turn and continue making these rows back and forth until I have the size that I need for the armholes. Once your panel is big enough to have the correct size armhole, you can cut your yarn, pull it through that last stitch to close, and now we are going to make the second back panel over here. First, we are going to find where to start. So here we have our last stitch from this side. You can see that here already began the next row. This one is our last stitch. I'm going to now count 20 stitches back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 20. Again, if you're doing a different size, your stitch count will be different. It should be exactly the same amount of stitches like this panel. So here is my first stitch that I'm going to go into. Just going to keep my finger over there so I shouldn't lose it. Grab your hook and your yarn. Now go into the stitch and pull the yarn through. Carefully because it's loose. Going to make my tail a bit longer so it shouldn't come out. And now I'm going to make a chain 1, which this is going to be considered my first stitch on this row. Now I'm going to crochet all the way back to here and by the end of each row on this panel, we're going to connect to this side. This was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you've reached your last stitch, before you crochet into it, we are going to pick up the stitch and we're going to go into the side of this same row from the other panel. So find one of these side stitches over here from this row. Let's see if we can find the same row. Follow along. Here, it's this row of these little loops over here. So you can go right into here. Okay, and now I'm going, with all of these on my hook, I'm going to make a single crochet. 1 and 2. I'm going to make it a bit tight, and we see now we connected to this side. So now we continue to make a chain 1, turn, beginning with the next one, crochet, making single crochets, remember that our first chain 1 over here with the tail, that was considered our first stitch, so make sure to go into that one as well. And that's the last stitch on the row. Now chain 1, turn, beginning with the next stitch, make another row, and here again, right before we go into the last stitch, which was our chain 1 from the previous row, going to go into here, find this same row on this side. So it's this row over here. See, those little loops are identical to these loops over here. So we can go right into here, pull through all of that, and finish the single crochet like that. We're going to continue on this way until we have the second panel will be exactly the same size as the first panel. Once you're done, you should end off on the outer side of the panel, because we see, like over here on the first panel, it's the same side as here. You could cut off your yarn and pull it through. And now we've finished the back. See over here, there's a little bit of a gap over here, but don't worry about that, because we could close it off with the tail or afterwards when we make the collar. It might look a little bit like this one is a bit bigger than this side, but that's fine. It's just the way, because of the connection, it makes it a bit tighter. But later we're going to add a collar and it's going to straighten everything out. So we see here that it did make a little bit of a spine kind of on the back piece. If you prefer not to use that, then you could just make this to be the inside of the sweater and this to be the outside, because on this side it disappears and it looks smooth and invisible. Now that we've finished the back, we can do the front. And the front we're going to do all in one piece, so it's much easier. We're going to find the first stitch over here that we need to pick up. Remember to hold it on the correct side, that you see the stitches this way and not this way. This is the side that we want. So here is the first stitch. Go into there. Grab your yarn and pull it through. Chain 1. And this is going to be our first stitch. So now we just continue making stitches all along this whole row. I suggest counting the stitches at least once to make sure that everything is exactly how it should be. Here I'm reaching the end of the row, and we just want to make sure that we're picking up the correct stitches. Here, it looks like this one is a stitch that needs to be picked up, but this one has that first chain 1 stitch that we did from the other row. So this is from the other panel, and here is all the stitches that I need for the front. Now continue going back and forth until we have exactly the same length as the back panels. Remember to chain 1 and turn, and beginning from the next stitch, you continue your row.